Good morning, everybody. This is Eric from Artistic Off-Road. We are headed up another desert canyon. Don't know what we're gonna find. Maybe some wild horses, burrows, or maybe even signs of ancient life. Come along with us on this adventure. It's gonna be a great day. So we're already spotting some signs of wildlife, and that is these hoof prints here. Now, I don't know if these are horse or burro, but I know that they're one or the other. A couple hundred years ago, when miners came out to this region seeking gold and other precious minerals, they brought with them burros and horses, because at that time there were no cars. And for some reason or another, they didn't take their burros with them when they left. Probably some of those burros escaped, horses wandered off, met up with some other horses from some other mining camp, got together, and now, a couple hundred years later, the offspring of those historic animals are still here in the mountains of California. Will we see them? I sure hope so. But that would be really a treat on this adventure. So we're gonna follow their tracks and keep an eye out. You can see here that there is no shortage of burro dung or wild horse dung. So they are up there somewhere, probably near the spring. So this area is really cool. We're kind of in this transition zone between desert, you can see down that way, and pinyon pine forest. And so what you get is just enough moisture and cold for the Joshua trees to survive. If you look around here, you can see that they're kind of stumpy, but as we get farther up, there's gonna be even bigger ones. So it's a very interesting habitat with all sorts of animals. And of course, toward the end of the canyon, there is a spring. There are not many water sources, so having a spring in this desert-like environment goes a long way and probably is a great place to sit and do some birding and other wildlife spotting. Wow, check out this hole. There's got to be a badger or something quite large living in there. Where is he at? We were not even expecting to find petroglyphs today. Figure we were just walking up this wash, but shortly into the canyon, we saw some rocks that appeared to have some markings on them. So let's go check them out. You can see this very, very, very faint outline of bighorn sheep and some other ones that have clearly been lost to time. I'm not particularly surprised that we found petroglyphs. In fact, I was kind of expecting it because the ancient peoples have inhabited these mountains for millennia. How old is this and when was that made? We have an obsidian shard here. These mountains are full of this rock. Clearly a great cutting tool. It would not take much to slice something open. These may be the oldest petroglyphs I've ever seen. You know, when you see something like we just did, and then you look at a rock like this and you see some light outlining, you have to take a picture and then use D-stretch to see if anything shows up. It looks like we have some more right up here. Wow, you can barely see this. There are clearly lines. These are very similar to what we saw with these like solstice markers, sun calendar. So there is a spring up here, and of course where there's water in the desert, there's been the pioneers and miners, and they left this old PVC pipe course, this is not an ancient musical instrument, but I'm going to use it as one. Let's see if we can fashion this into a didgeridoo. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Looks like we got some more petroglyphs on this rock here, but again, these petroglyphs in this area are just so old that trying to make out what these lines are is impossible. So we'll use D-stretch and see if it comes up with anything. This is the kind of rock though, this kind of volcanic varnished rock that you'd notice them on. This must be a popular rock, as we have not only petroglyphs but also this bone here. Looks like a fairly large neck bone or spinal bone or... Alright guys, well it looks like we are coming upon the spring here. You can always tell because the plant life changes so dramatically, and these guys here may be mesquite or something along those lines. Some water-loving plant. I don't understand why the miners couldn't have cleaned up their piping, but I think it's a bit of a blight. And I would encourage the BLM to come up here and just get rid of these pipings. There's no reason to keep them up here. They're obviously not that old, being PVC. So we're just following the burro trail here. Burros have found a nice way to get around the congestion of plants in the canyon bottom where the spring lies. But it looks like up ahead you got a couple more springs. Looking forward to seeing if we can spot any petroglyphs up this way. Oh, you can even see some water. All right, good signs. And check it out, there's a wall up there, old miner's wall, and we are entering the juniper pinyon pine area. That is a pinyon pine tree just in front of us there. That tells us that this area gets snow. And look at that, we got our first little crunch of snow there. Go check out the spring up here. Looks like there's a pretty good little water hole. The water flowing out. I imagine the burros and the wild horses are down here every night. If we set up a wildlife camera here, probably see a lot of interesting critters coming through here. And you know, it's nice to see the water looks pretty clear. And that's probably because it recently rained. So it's probably washed out some of the muck. So you can see quite a few bones in this area, but these may very well just be old cattle bones. I'm sure ranchers brought their cattle up here to water them back in the day. Looks like up here we have a cistern holding tank for water that is not filled up right now. Wow. You can see though, there's a pipe down here that would have drained into the creek bed. Wow, this hasn't been used in a long time. I don't think there's any markings on it. You can see here there's an old ranching fence that probably is meant to keep the cattle from going farther up canyon there. But the burros have done us a real nice favor by carving out a trail. Now, it looks like you either go down or go up. I'm thinking down, even though it's a little bit precarious. So the people who lived in these mountains were nomadic. Unlike sedentary peoples who had a lot more earthenware, like clay pots or even buildings. So the people who traveled through these mountains not only made their homes in the caves, they also made more temporary structures out of pinyon pine branches and the like. And then when the season changed and it was time to go to higher or lower elevations, they could easily move and then carry on. So when you're not seeing a lot of things like you might see in the Southwest, you know, in the Southwest you might see more like brick and mortar type of buildings, right? Out here, you don't see anything like that because it was just a different climate. The water sources were a lot more temporary, and so the people here had a much different lifestyle than you might see in other regions. So we've made it out of the springs area, and it sure is nice to be back in an open wash, not having to bushwhack through all that foliage. What a canyon. Let me show you what this place looks like. Check out these walls. It's closing in there deep into that gorge. So we've come upon more signs of Aboriginal inhabitation here. You have these fairly small grinding pits known as morteros, and someone recently told me in the comments they call these paha. Perhaps that is the Paiute or Shoshone word. I did not ask yet. So I'm pretty sure this area here was the ancient habitation of the folks who were making those morteros back there. What a perfect spot to get out of the sun, out of the rain, maybe light a fire, go in here and take a look around. Oh wow, definitely fire. Check out how this entire ceiling is black. That's really cool. Look at that. What a perfect place for a few people to lay down. So, there's some bones, some small bones. These could have been rabbit bones, maybe eaten by the folks. Let's take a look in here though. Wow. It doesn't really look like it's been inhabited by critters, because you'd see more like scat and things like that. But definitely fire charred ceiling. And then this rock is really interesting. It doesn't look like it's been like milled on, but it'd be a perfect milling stone. And that's really kind of unusual for this general area. And check this out. What I just saw over here. You have one piece of obsidian, but clearly someone was working this in this cave here. We will leave it, of course. Oh, and this is really cool. Check this out. That has to be something that was fashioned into a point. That is to point like it was sitting right next to the obsidian here. Wow. All the things you find. You also have some charcoal here. Probably very old charcoal that was used by the inhabitants of this rock shelter here. So cool. So here's another point. My guess is these were, attached to some kind of a stick and then speared into a rabbit or other small game. And then they were brought up here with the spear still in it and then removed and then discarded. So we're just up here on the roof of the cave looking down canyon here. And we've worked up a really good appetite hiking up here. So we're going to sit down, hang out in the presence of the ancient peoples of this mountain and listen to the wind. All right guys, today's lunch is care of the Best Western. I don't normally eat bacon, but when I do, it's Best Western. Look at that. That's a hearty meal right there. Tater tots, bacon, eggs, and cheese with a tortilla wrap. All right, guys, that was a really fun adventure, and I thank you for coming along with us this time. It goes to show that if you just get out and explore, adventure always awaits. So we'll see you next time.